Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure today to introduce Louis Laflamme, CEO and President of OpSens at our conference. OpSens is a Quebec-based company that develops and manufactures best-in-class fiber optic sensor and guide wire devices primarily used in minimally invasive cardiovascular procedures with some industrial applications. Their key cardiovascular solutions are OptoWire and the newly approved SavvyWire, a revolutionary TAVR guide wire system recently launched in the US and Canada. Participants, please feel free to submit your questions confidentially at any point via the chat for the Q&A session at the end. Louis has been the CEO at OpSens since 2013 and has been with the company since 2005, a true believer in their innovative and disruptive technologies. Welcome, Louis, and I'll now pass it over to you to go through a brief overview and update on OpSens, and following that, we'll move into the Q&A.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you to give OpSens an opportunity to present in your conference. So, I'm really glad, and it's an honor for me to lead OpSens, which is really building fascinating products and technologies. So, as a quick introduction, the company was founded on fiber optic sensing. So it means that with light, we can measure temperature, pressure, and other parameters. So in our medical platform, we use this in three main components. So the first component is where we started, business partnerships. So it means that we are selling our sensing technology to other medical device corporation. Our biggest customer is Abiomed. They are the leader in the world in terms of circulatory assist device, and they are integrating our pressure sensing technology into their product. And we feel it's really having a contribution to the field. So Abiomed is an example for pressure. Monteris, which is another medical device company, but in that case, doing brain trauma treatment. They are using our temperature sensor to properly monitor some intervention in the brain. So this was really the start in our medical device platform. But at some point, we felt that we had the greatest miniature pressure sensing technology in the world for medical application. So we had to do more. And that's where we developed a completely new business model where we decided to develop our own product that we would sell directly or through distributors to hospital. So we have the OptoWire for coronary artery disease, so supporting cardiologists to decide if they should implement a stent or not. We've done more than 200,000 patients with this device. And as you mentioned in your introduction, we are coming now with recently clear for US and Canada a new product called the SavvyWire that is addressing the aortic valve stenosis, which is one of the highest growth area in cardiology. And we really feel it's going to transform OpSens because the synergies that we are seeing from a sales channel standpoint between OptoWire and SavvyWire is really important. And we think this will help us to accelerate our growth, to increase our gross margin, our market share with both products, and on top of that, to capitalize on all the infrastructure we have. So, key highlights, SavvyWire is really a unique concept, a three-in-one solution. We are having a vision of growth. We have a really strong balance sheet position. We develop agreements with group purchasing organizations in the US that are covering 90% of the hospital in the US. So we really feel that we have in place the right element to generate substantial value for shareholders by generating revenue growth. So if I quickly go into the TAVR application, so here you can see a schematic with the SavvyWire inside the heart of the patient. The problem we are solving here is that you see a normal aortic valve. It's a heart that is properly opening and closing. In some cases, 2 or 3% of the US population at a certain age will get this. And that's the problem the doctors want to solve. And using a transaortic valve replacement, TAVR, instead of open heart surgery, the recovery for the patient is much faster. So since there was clinical data that showed that TAVR was providing, either non-inferior or superior results compared to surgery. We saw really a boom in the market size and the market growth in TAVR, and that's where we want to play a role. And I'll just share here a quick video from Dr. Tamara Atkinson.
Of this being embedded into an 035 wire, well, I think that's where the game changer is. I mean, having a TAVR wire that you could pace, that you could measure hemodynamics, I think that would be widely adopted.
So it's really a new concept. And the idea there is that, okay, TAVR was already existing before OpSens, but the difference here is that they had to use multiple devices to do some additional steps, while in our case, you can do all the work using the SavvyWire, from the valve delivery, from measuring and displaying pressure gradient or pressure information. And on top of that, you can do heart stimulation. So to, without the goal of making anybody an expert here, you can see a deployment of an Edwards valve in the video on the right. And, this is done over the SavvyWire while we are doing heart stimulation. So in summary, we got approval in advance in US for the SavvyWire, and the feedback we get from physicians is that they, depending on their practice, they can eliminate some steps. They can, and by eliminating those steps, they save some time, which is really relevant to them. So, SavvyWire is going to change the world in TAVR. We are deploying a strategy to make this becoming the standard. As the introduction, of course, the main revenue driver that we have right now is the OptoWire. So it's a device, another pressure guide wire, that is helping physicians to make decisions when there is blockages around the heart. Because they need to decide if they should implement a stent or not. So we are doing this. We have the best product in the field. There is an opportunity to do clearly more in all of the markets where we are, especially in US. And that's where we came, with the strategy where there was a need to have a broader team, but to justify, financially to have a broader team, it was necessary to have a second product in our portfolio. And on top of that, I think the support from GPOs, from administration, was going to lower the bar to help us accelerate our growth. So this is the product that we are selling. On top of this, I mentioned about the agreement, the partnership that we have with Abiomed, where we have an agreement that has been extended up to 2028. So we see really this as a long-term relationship. Recently, Abiomed was bought by Johnson & Johnson, and we think it will just fuel additional growth. Just one last comment in my introduction is that I think it's important that also the financial community, you have to be aware that the medical revenues are 90% of our consolidated revenues. This being said, we are still using exactly the same optical sensing technology for industrial application. And we are doing those activities through a wholly owned subsidiary called OpSens Solution, that is, again, measuring pressure, measuring temperature. So it's a cash flow positive business unit. And on top of that, we have R&D project where our intention is to change the world in terms of fuel monitoring for airplanes. We also have been selected by the largest research project in the nuclear industry called ITER, where we are providing a pressure sensor. So when you summarize about OpSens, when we look at after the near-term goals, the next milestone, the full SavvyWire launch in the US will be big for us. To continue to capitalize on GPO agreements will also be key. We are seeing growth in consolidated revenues to achieve a record year in 2023. We also expect to complete a study in Europe with SavvyWire to get CE mark clearance, to continue to increase critical mass in the industrial business, and at some point we can assess a potential uplisting on a major US exchange. So in conclusion, we feel that we are really having the right team, the right products, the right technologies to contribute to the healthcare industry. We got the feedback from doctors that our product are really making a difference. With that, Alex, I would be ready to receive any question you may have.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, that was a great summary of what's gone on. You've had an incredibly busy and productive year for the company, but it sounds like 2023 is going to be truly transformational with the full ramp of SavvyWire, OptoWire continuing to sell, as you mentioned, the industrial business continuing to do well. So as we wait for some of the questions to come in, maybe I'll kick things off here, Louis, with a first question. So since these approvals, OpSens has been busy demonstrating SavvyWire out in the field to doctors across North America and globally. And we've heard that it saves roughly 10 to 15 minutes per procedure. So what's some of the on-the-ground feedback you're hearing from cardiologists? And how does your faster and simpler procedure translate into savings or greater revenue for the hospitals and cath labs that you're speaking with?
Yeah, so I'll use one extract that we have in the presentation. So, and I was personally attending to those cases. So I was at Morristown in New Jersey, the first center in US that was using our product, and you know that's a really busy lab in US, and for them, you know, before us, often they were using another device to do what we call right ventricular pacing. So to do heart stimulation, they had to do another insertion in the patient, insert another device, monitor that, close after the procedure the insertion. So this was additional step. Since the SavvyWire can deliver the valve, can measure hemodynamic information, and can do heart stimulation, they could remove those steps. So the feedback that we got from them is that, you know, they could save maybe 10 minutes in a procedure. And the impact of that for the hospital and the patient can be huge. If we take the perspective of the hospital, I mean, those labs, and it's not a secret for anybody, we are in a human resources shortage everywhere. So if they can perform procedure faster, and let's say if in a normal day they had 7 TAVR cases at Morristown, well, suddenly using the SavvyWire, maybe they can do 8 or 9, and doing 9 cases. I mean, the TAVR procedure is reimbursed for significant amount of money in US, somewhere between $32,000 to $40,000. So if the hospital can perform 2 more cases with the same staff, with the same personnel, it's additional revenue for the company. Or if we take the flip perspective, at least they could let go their employee earlier to go at home, so they would have more normal days, and this is a lot of value for the hospital. If we think about the patient also, is that I mean, we think the SavvyWire, and that's the feedback we got, is really bringing TAVR into a new era. Because I'll take the perspective of the pressure information. So prior to SavvyWire, to measure pressure gradient, there was other methods. So they could do echography over the thoracic cage. It's probably not really as accurate as we want. If the doctor want to have more accuracy, they would need to bring an echo device inside the stomach, what we call TEE. Well, in such case, it's not that comfortable for the patient. Again, it's additional step that you could potentially save. So it's not ideal. Or they could use what they call being pigtails, where it's a workflow where they need to insert the device. After that, they retrieve everything. They bring a new wire to deliver the valve. And there is this back and forth action. which is clearly not optimal from a patient and clinical outcome standpoint. In our case, with the SavvyWire, and using exactly the same optomonitor that we are using with OptoWire, we can display in real time the pressure gradient, so the difference in pressure between inside and outside the heart, what is represented here by the yellow region. So having this information in real time before, during, and after the procedure can be really useful for the physicians, because I mean, there is various occasions where it's useful. I'll just give an example. One area of innovation in the world of TAVR is to develop valve that can be partially deployed. And if the result is not good, they can recapture the valve, reposition the valve, and redeliver. Well, having the information in real time from the SavvyWire is really useful for them. And ultimately, it's going to support doing the best for their patient. So in summary, the feedback that we got is that SavvyWire is a useful tool because it can eliminate steps, help to save time. When you eliminate steps, you eliminate the cost of some devices that were used to perform those steps. So in summary, the feedback is really good.
Oh, that's great to hear, and there was some really good detail in there for a lot of the listeners. We do have a question from one of the listeners or one of the participants today, Louis, that dovetails a little bit into the last question. And it's that when SavvyWire is contracted to a cath lab, would that cath lab and the doctors within it use the SavvyWire for the majority, if not all, of the procedures that they would do in this TAVR area? Would they be using any other wires at that time, or are they really trained on your wires, and once you're kind of in there, you become the standard of care at that clinic?
Well, just to be clear, we are still early, and I mean we are rolling out in a controlled manner. So right now in US, OpSens has been attending to all cases that were happening with the almost all cases that were happening in US. So I would say I'm not sure we need to base our view on the last 2 months. This being said, SavvyWire is a product that was built for all TAVR cases, from the easiest to the most difficult. We, in our plan, okay, in our financial model, we don't anticipate to be let's say, to get 100% market share in hospital. We may get this in different hospital, but that's not what we need to be considered as a success. Honestly, with the size of the TAVR market, for us, getting to 30% market share would be enough to achieve our goals of achieving $100 million in sales. So in summary, interesting question. We think over time we will gain really significant market share within the top 200 hospitals in US. But in general, in interventional cardiology, and we see this also in coronary artery disease, rarely the hospital will rely only on one product, because I mean anything can happen from a risk consideration. Often when we in hospital where we sell the OptoWire, and let's say there is one other FFR supplier that is there, and we anticipate it will be the same situation with SavvyWire, while we are confident we'll gain the most significant share.
Yeah, that makes sense. And again, with such a large total addressable market and more indications to come, I mean, just a small percentage penetration is a huge impact to you guys at your size today. So just
that's a good point. Let's say from a macro standpoint, when we think about the TAVR market, okay, because the history there is really interesting to share is that, okay, before there was, clinical studies that were comparing TAVR, so trans-aortic valve replacement, and SAVR, so surgery, open heart surgery. I would say that the TAVR market share was really small. So initially, at some point, they said, well, for really old patient, really high-risk patient, is it smart to do surgery? And the answer was probably not, because the risks related to an open heart surgery were really high. So they demonstrated that using, wires or catheter to deliver a new valve was a good thing for them. After that, okay, companies made the demonstration that even for all comers, lower risk patient, TAVR was providing benefits. Now, okay, and initially the target was really what they were calling severe aortic stenosis. Today, when we listen to the market, to the leader in the field, which is Edwards, in 2025, they are more talking about a market of $10 billion. So what's the gap between 8.2 and 10? Well, right now there is a trend where the doctors are saying, maybe we should treat moderate stenosis, not only wait until the patient is really sick, but to act earlier. And when you do this, it means that the lifetime patient management is key. So it means that, making the right decision with the most accurate tool is the right thing to do. And again, we think this trend will be really in favor of SavvyWire. On top of this, if you implement TAVR in younger patients, those valves may have a lifespan of 10 to 15 years, but let's use 15. So it means that at some point, patient will have to come back to potentially get a new valve. And because of the functions of SavvyWire in terms of providing hemodynamic information in real time, it's really what we consider the best tool for valve-in-valve and balloon valvuloplasty. So we think the trend of the market is really in the favor long-term for the unique device that we have.
That's great. I'm going to marry one question I had with one that we have had come in, and that's related to the Salesforce ramp that you've done in advance of the big ramp up in sales next year. You've almost doubled the Salesforce here, and you're making a lot of outreach, as we talked about earlier, to a number of doctors and clinics to demonstrate the procedure and so on. Is that Salesforce addition mostly complete, and now you're ramping them to quota in the coming months in 2023? And then what's your target list? How many hospitals, what's the outreach going to look like as we go through 2023?
Okay, so the answer is yes. We double the size of the sales team, and the reason for this is that we really see tremendous commercial opportunities in front of us with both SavvyWire and OptoWire, and working them in combination in various accounts. So we felt that it was the right time for us to invest there. When we think about, let's say, the next step is really to capitalize, to improve the performance of the existing team. So on a short-term basis, we don't necessarily expect to increase again this team. So that's one component of your question. The second one, what's the ramp? Just to put things in context here. Today, with the OptoWire, we have approximately 60 customers in US. Well, with SavvyWire, even if we are still in a control phase, what we call the wave one of our launch, we expect to have more than 20 accounts as of December 31st. And we think this will lead to even a more continuous growth in the first half of 2023 that will bring us to our year-end August 31st. So clearly, we are seeing a strong penetration of SavvyWire in the top 200 accounts. I mean, if we have 20 in December, and I'm confident we'll be probably in a position to double that or triple that before the end of the year. And one interesting comment that we can do is that on top of what we are doing in terms of releasing the device with our sales team and so on, OpSens has been invited by different companies or doctors to see the SavvyWire being used in some clinical studies. And we think this will be another path to value creation, to support the SavvyWire becoming a standard. And I'm confident we'll be in a position to do some announcement around this in 2023.
That's great. One last question before we conclude here is just around, obviously you talked about the 100 million revenue target. Justin, I think, has that at 2025. But in terms of the margin profile of these products, significantly higher margins available on the SavvyWire product. I think we're looking at 22% margins for the business in 2025. And the other part is consumables as a share of the business are going to be rising. There's a consumable aspect here to these products that's quite exciting. So maybe you could talk a little bit about the profitability expectations in the coming years as you scale both OptoWire and SavvyWire in the market.
Yeah, sure. First, I think I will tackle the gross margin rate component behind your question. Is that okay? For the fiscal year ending August 31st, 2022, we had approximately a consolidated gross margin rate of 50%. When we look to fiscal year 2023 and 24, we expect this gross margin rate percentage to increase significantly. And the drivers behind this growth is that first, SavvyWire is a product that is having a transfer price, a sales price higher than the OptoWire, even if the cost of goods sold are lower. So obviously, it's a higher margin product than OptoWire. On top of this, the strategy that we have in place here, where TAVR, the biggest market is the US market. We just put in place a broader sales team in our direct market in Canada and US. So the weight of sales that we do in direct markets, which are higher margin, compared to the weight of sales that we do with distributors in Europe and Japan, the fact that our direct sales will increase will also have a positive impact on the gross margin rate. And the third driver behind this is obviously having more critical mass will help us to absorb fixed costs. So, we are confident we'll show good growth in terms of the gross margin percentage that we will release in the next few quarters. And this is going to start on the first quarter 2023, which was ending on November 30, 2022. So this is one component. In terms of profitability or of financial results, we do expect to burn money in the fiscal year 2023, to burn less money in 2024 as we move toward a more break-even situation. This being said, we think we can achieve this, and it will be value creative for shareholders with the growth we are seeing. And as you are mentioned, we feel that the three components that are in place here on our medical platform, the business partnerships, we are going to grow with our customers, and we are expecting substantial growth there. In coronary artery disease, just increasing our market share in US shouldn't bring us at a much higher level. So just business partnership, we've done something like $10 million in revenue in fiscal year 2022. It should move to 20. Coronary artery disease, we were at 21 or 22 it should move to 40, while aortic valve stenosis, we think we can grow this from $0 to $40 million within a few years. So this will be our platform that will bring us to $100 million in revenues. And of course, including that, we also have the industrial business that is positioned for growth.
Okay, great. We're out of time. Merci, Louis, and to everyone who joined our session. Sounds like 2023 is going to be an exciting year for OpSens. For those that can make it, we'll be having an in-person reception starting at 4:30 in our offices at 161 Bay Street on the 38th floor. We hope to see you there.
Thank you, Alex.